Hi, I'm Roger from HolistiPlan, and today I'm announcing in scenario analysis, we have a working version of all 43 states that have a state income tax, plus the District of Columbia. So 44 in total in scenario analysis. It's been a long road to get here, but like I said, we have a functional working version 1 of all of them. The way you set up state tax on your side is you will navigate to My Account, which is the same place where you change your password and stuff like that. And at the very, very bottom, you'll click Join State Beta. Now, at the moment, the opt-in for the state beta is user by user. It's not for your whole firm. That's probably something we'll need to change. I could see a situation where someone starts filling in state income tax stuff and they throw it over the cubicle wall to their friend, and their friend's like, I don't see what you just did. So we might have to make it so it's firm by firm. But right now, everyone in your firm, if you want to participate in this thing, user by user, you'll have to opt in for that state tax beta. Let's go into scenario analysis so we can see how it will behave. So I'm in scenario analysis here. What you'll see new, if you've opted in for state taxes, is this at the bottom. It says state tax beta. And that's like a whole new section of the scenario analysis screen. And by default, an income tax record doesn't have a state tax record attached to it, but I will just say click, add state. And what that does is it creates a template, a blank state tax record that we enter data for. And this defaulted to California. It's going to default to the household state, and if there is no state, it's going to say California. I'll go with California because that's a high income tax state, and we'll use that as an example. What you'll see, actually, let me flip across a couple states. So I'm in California now. Notice I've got all these areas of data input. Let's change it to, I don't know, Delaware. And when I change it to Delaware, notice that the fields change. And that's because different states are bringing in or excluding different things. And so we had to do our best to make sure that we tried to capture what were the additions, the subtractions that were relevant for each state. Now, that was a bit of a judgment call because you could go down to the nth level of granularity for something like a New York where there's dozens and dozens of additions and subtractions, or do you lump them into a more generalized additions page, additions field? And so we are tailoring that still, but I think it's a good start that we have. We do our best, if you kind of click these kind of help buttons here, we do our best to try to give some coaching as far as, okay, here's what this field means. But I will say, like, if you're trying to model a state that you're not too familiar with, it's going to be challenging. There'll be some learning curve associated with learning how that state works. Now, we're hoping that if you're working within a state you know really well, these fields will all be very obvious what they mean. Hopefully they match the sorts of inputs that you're typically changing when you're running a scenario, building a scenario at the state level. Let's go back to California though, because that'll show something cool when I go over to RangeCalc, because California's got a big old set of state income tax brackets. So I entered some data here at the state level. I'm going to flip over to RangeCalc. All right, here we are, RangeCalc finished running. And this is what we're used to seeing. This is the federal stuff. But now, because I added a state tax record to this income tax record, I have this little box that says show the state tax. And now, look at that. I clicked it. And now that's showing me the impact, not just of the federal, but stacked on top of it is the impact at the state level. And so, we're using RangeCalc typically to try to figure out how much income to bring into a year or push out of a year. Now at least we'll be able to see, okay, maybe I've got the federal the way I thought it should behave, but state is adding some extra drama that I hadn't anticipated, for example. So that's what's going on with RangeCalc. I will flip back to scenario analysis because I want to show you at the very bottom is a separate state withholding calculator, which behaves just like the federal withholding calculator. So my total state tax right now is 0. Let's add some income so that we actually have some state taxes to deal with. So let's put in some big old wages here of, I don't know, 200,000. Close that. So now I should see some state taxes. My income was too low earlier. Here we go. State taxes of $11,000. And then it's the same sort of fields you're used to at the federal level. So if I pay $2,000 in estimated taxes at the state level, well, then my bill that comes due is going to be $9,791. Same sort of thing as what you had at the federal level, right? That withholding calculator piece. So that is state taxes. Let me make sure I covered everything. Now, why are we still calling it a beta? It's not because we're just like making it up and we don't think it's close to the finish line. It's more, we've done a line by line, research, back testing against our history of returns that are in our database. So we've done, I think, a pretty deep, detailed dive into all of these states and their rules. But just the reality is there are nuances that you, the advisor, are going to know better than us in your state. We've done a great job so far of taking the feedback from advisors, iterating on the state tax work. So we're calling it beta, but I feel pretty confident that you're gonna recognize what you're seeing in there, and the calculations are gonna make sense for you. But state taxes are always in flux. Sometimes that are on a different schedule than federal. We don't necessarily have new federal tax legislation so far this year, or at least not since March. But on the state side, these things are still moving, and so we got to make sure we keep up to date with those as well. And there are some little edge cases that we still have to complete. Some additional work on AMT. There's several states with AMT in them. We got to kind of finish that out. So we're calling it beta, but again, I feel confident now that we can make this announcement that it's ready to go. Give it a shot, turn the beta on, and let us know what you're seeing, if it makes sense for you, if it's working for you. My advice is if you have, let's say you're in Ohio or something like that, 95% of your clients are in Ohio and you know the Ohio tax code really, really well, you're a great candidate to be using the state tax functionality in scenario analysis. But for that one client you have in Louisiana, who you may not know all the fields, what they all mean, or what the planning implications are of different strategies in Louisiana, I suspect that the state tax functionality for that state might be a little difficult just to use that as your only entry point in Louisiana. And so that's going to be a judgment call on your side, but I would say start with the state you know really well and use that for hopefully the bulk of your clients. And then when you get to those edge cases, judgment call, but maybe you reach out to a CPA in that area to make sure you're really modeling things the way you want to. So what does it cost? I've warned in every single one of these state tax videos that it will not be free forever. The 44 states, if you include the District of Columbia, that's just a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of work to keep it all up to date. It's not going to be something that is just going to be free forever. But during this period when we're working through it and kicking the tires on it and improving it, certainly we're going to drop it in for everybody. But just know that at some point, I don't know when, but at some point it will exit beta, and then it will be either an add-on product or it'll be a product that's available at certain subscription tiers. I'm just not sure, but that's where it will be. But right now, please join the beta. Let's get this thing figured out as soon as we can. Let's make sure we can allow state tax to be part of the process in Q4 this year when you're doing your end of year projections. I'll end this by saying I am going to make a separate video with Griffin Fry. He's the developer who did like 98%, 99%. Well, actually, more than 100% of the work to build this state tax stuff, because not only did he have to build all the states, but he had to go back and fix some of my mistakes on the first few states that I built. So we're going to go deep dive with him. I can't think of anyone like in the world who knows as much at this moment in time about the nuances of the 44 states and their tax codes than this guy Griffin. So we're going to dig in. That'll be on a separate video. So if you're really, really interested in learning about state taxes, stick around or find that on our YouTube channel, and we will go into exhaustive depth about state taxes.